How much is that?
Welcome to the Podcast Editors Mastermind, the business side of podcast editing, not just the production or whatnot, but actually running a business and doing this professionally. Today we have an amazing show. I'm really excited to talk about one of my favorite tools that I use pretty much every show I work on. But before we get into that, I am Daniel Abendroth. You can find me at rothmedia.audio.
I'm Brian Ensminger. You can find me at toptieraudio.com. And beside me is
Carrie Caulfield Eric, and you can find me at yayapodcasting.com. Quick aside, I am not where you think I am, Brian.
So that's fair. Daniel, do you want to introduce our guest, and then I'll explain why we're so confused.
So our guest tonight is Kam Lal, who is the founder of Notetracks. He has an extensive background in audio and music production and software development. Notetracks was inspired by a need he had in music production workflow that led to the development of the platform that is now used by musicians, podcasters, and audio and video creators all around the world. And I am one of those. Kam, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here, and then again to spend some quality time with a fellow customer. Perhaps convince a couple on the board on the panel as well too. I'm super stoked to
it's good.
Yeah.
If you honestly, anybody who our target audience would get a use out of this, especially if any clients that like to have a say in the final audio. But we'll get into all that. But before we dive too deep, I do want to say this episode is generously sponsored by the Podcast Editors Academy. They have a ton of amazing resources. And if you are on the fence about joining the Academy, now is a perfect time because they have some amazing deals that are expiring at the end of the month. Not only is there an incredible discount on the podcast, the Editors Conference, I'm losing what the words are. That's happening right before Podcast Movement. But you can also get a discount on headphones, Hindenburg Pro, and a bunch of other things that are expiring at the end of the month, as well as the tool we'll be talking about tonight, Notetracks. So you can get a pretty steep discount right now whenever you join and use the code YETIS and get your first 31 days free of Podcast Editors Academy.
Shout out to Steve Stewart and Mark Deal.
Yeah, they've created an incredible resource for podcast editors like us.
Yeah.
Plus, there's a job board. So
board. Yeah.
Anybody looking to find clients, that's a great reason to join alone because there's always something.
And Steve posts new jobs to the Academy before posting it to the public group. So if you want to get a jump start, honestly, if you land one client because of that, it's already paid for the membership itself. Yeah. So Kam, do you want to tell us a little bit about you, how you got started, and how Notetracks came to be?
How it got started is it falls from a little bit my background. I've got a music background, so I grew up as a young child playing the keys. Got into hip hop culture. Was an inspiring rap artist. Got into DJing, and after being a DJ for a certain amount of time, once you've got some talents and you know what a hit record sounds like, you seek to make the hit instead of play the hit. So I got into music production. Opened up my DAW, started recording, enhancing the sounds. But at the same time, my parents wanted to have me fall back on something just in case my music career wasn't going to make it. So I did a background in computer science just because I wanted to understand how the software I was working with was built. There were a lot of, everything was going to digital. So Cubase was what I started off using, virtual synth technology, my VSTs, my plugins, et cetera. And I wanted to understand how these things, came about. Did a major in computer science, wasn't very motivating. I barely passed, through the courses. And I started doing a minor in music just to keep myself motivated. And in one of the classrooms, we were doing an ear training exercise where you take a piece of music and you dissect it to know what's going on in the track, chord progression changes, even an audio engineering standpoint. We're looking at frequencies, bass frequencies, etc. So the professor would print screen a waveform, put it up on the projector, and us as students would be taking timestamp notes of 30 seconds, chord progression change, 45 seconds, et cetera, et cetera. This is happening. And it was around the time that paper was going to digital. So apps such as Evernote were emerging, the note-taking app, Microsoft Word, Google Docs. It was an excellent exercise. So, just the process of reverse engineering a popular track allowed me to go back into my studio and say, hey, try to do this or try to do that when it comes to your own production. But I never had the platform for it. My notes were always on a piece of paper. The music was always in a CD player at the time. We would have to rewind, pause, fast forward, etc. And there was no visual. I couldn't see the waveform. So I always wanted to, take notes on audio tracks. And the best thing I could do at that time, given the fact that I was a DJ and, we used to do our own marketing materials, do a little bit of Photoshop and all that stuff, I would print screen Cubase sessions and then paste them into Photoshop and then write notes underneath the session files. I would, just take the text tool and start. And I've got somewhere in my closet, I've got the first version of like Notetracks where, it's basically notes on a Cubase session. And that's what I wanted. Once I graduated, I started working in software development. A few years later, SoundCloud came about, and I go, "Oh wow, you got the waveform, and you've got some notes, and there goes that idea I had." But I still tried to use it for this specific purpose of analysis, and it didn't serve my purpose just because the comments there were not very visible. They're very limited. It was designed for social sharing of music and not for documentation on audio, which is what I visioned, like a markup tool on audio where I could circle stuff and draw stuff and analyze the crap out of an audio file. And it was specifically for the purpose of analyzing. It was really just to reverse engineer popular music so I could become a better music producer. That was what drove me to build this version. And I came to a point where after working many, many years in software technology, I was managing some large scale mobile and web projects. And I came to a point where I was moving away from music. I had this passion of mine of still, wanting to be this better music producer. And I said, well, I could go ahead and try to build this tool now. I've assembled, the knowledge to do so. Worst case scenario, it's going to be an expensive piece of gear. Best case scenario, I'll get the tool and, I'll be able to play with it. And I took this year off of work to do it. And then, what I was building turned to be a startup. So there was access to grow the company and grow the product. So we launched our first version. It was an iOS app on the App Store. And, I built it for analysis, and then musicians started, it always had a, flavor of music behind it, just because again it was built for this purpose. But musicians started using it to collaborate. So they started actually, we would ask our users, "What are you using this app for?" And they said, "Well, we're actually a band trying to give feedback to our band members spread across, pre-COVID." And it was a very archaic version of the app. It was an app that you had to download. There was no cloud to it. It was, they were passing files by sending Notetracks session files. So they would mark the notes up, and then they would send the session file in an email or by Dropbox to somebody, and then somebody would open it, and they would just have this kind of like this DAW session file. It wasn't a DAW, but it's like the session file where they would be able to see the notes. So I felt like there was a very Microsoft Word for audio, a first version of what we were trying to build. And our next step was to really build this cloud collaborative, like Google Docs version, where you're able to upload to the cloud, invite somebody in real time. You're able to see notes and exchange feedback in real time together. So we were able to receive a bit more funding to be able to build this version, and that launched slightly pre-COVID, but our main launch was during COVID, where we had this entire shift towards remote collaboration. So initially, even though we built this as a music tool, we initially launched in the podcasting space. So one of our partners, came to us and said, "Hey, you've got this tool. We've got a large segment of podcasters. Does this work for podcasting?" We did have to make some tweaks because there's a bit of a difference there's a lot of parallels between music production and podcasting. Your DAWs that are being used, you've got your engineering, your plugins, etc. but there's a lot of differences as well too. So in music, you're dealing with a 2 to 5 minute maximum file, and podcasts are like 45 to like 1 hour. So our load times, performance times had to be, modified and optimized to handle these types of files, which we did. And it's been great. I would say we're a little more podcast, users than music at this point. So I'd probably say about, 60 to 40%. But a lot of our, podcasters are also musicians at the same time too, which makes it very interesting. I talk to, guys that are also music producers working on podcasts, or podcasters that happen to be musicians. So I feel that there's a lot of parallels between both. I enjoy it because, we're talking about the same gear, we're in the same space. It's a different industry and a different medium, that's for sure. But I love being in this industry. And the use case, is basically all around collaboration. So the same way as musicians were using it to collaborate, or are using it to collaborate, podcasters are doing the same, whether they be editors or whether they be producers, creators, hosts. They are all gathering feedback on an episode, on a draft, on an episode in works, to be able to improve the process, which, even though this platform was built for analyzing a hit record, I feel it's the same thing. I feel like feedback is just another form of analysis. It's just, it's peer analysis, it's group analysis, it's quality control. It's controlling the quality of what you're doing to improve it. Happy to be here and talk about, collaboration, feedback, improvement in general. I feel that it's not only in what we do, it's also in, everything else that surrounds us. So as a software developer, as an entrepreneur, I'm always looking for feedback. I'm always trying to improve, and just, make the best things that we could possibly make.
I know that for me, I'd be interested to see how, I don't know if it's relevant for our audience, but the collaboration aspect, because I imagine for large teams, narrative based, that'd be huge. But I know for me, it's all about the quality control. So whenever I finish an episode, every episode goes to somebody on my team, and they take it, upload it to Notetracks, make all their notes, and then I get an email of all the timestamps. That's really useful. It's seeing all the timestamps, what their notes are, and just having a platform. Because before it was just having to, so she would have to listen to it on a separate thing, have Word doc or something, or an email open, and all the timestamps are slightly off. But with this, as she's listening, she can just pinpoint right where it is, leave her comment about what needs to be changed, or what her opinion is, and then keep going. And it's nice having all kind of in one program.
That's nice, because dealing with the, somebody just kind of looking and writing down a timestamp is very not accurate.
No, not even close.
Yeah, the timestamp, what we bank on is that the timestamp could be, an error. So again, you could be looking at a player and then going back into, your email and then typing in something, and then it's the wrong timestamp. You missed a one before the colon, etc. And then there's also, what we also, kind of play on is the disconnect. So it's kind of right, you're as close connected to the audio. If you're putting something on the waveform visually, you could actually see it. So you could actually see, where you put your marker, and then have your note attached to it, and then continue to listen. So you don't have to stop anything. You don't have to switch tabs. You don't have to go back and forth. It's really close as you could get to on the waveform. So you don't kind of interrupt your flow. But Daniel, you have a particular use for it. So in your case, you're the editor, and you have somebody that's QAing your edits. It's not the client that you're sending it to.
So I have 3 people that use it. So me, I have an assistant editor, and then my virtual assistant. Either me or my editor, whenever we get done, we'll send the audio to her. She'll listen through, make her notes, and then we'll get the digest of what it is. So I think he actually logs into Notetracks to see all the notes, and I just go by the email that automatically sends out. So yeah, I actually don't work with any clients. I should, because there is one. So I have one client that is pretty in depth, and so sometimes I'll get an email back at this timestamp, but it's 15:47. I go there, I'm I am not hearing what you're hearing, but it was actually 25:47 or something. That one number, you were saying, is off. So I do need to get her on it, so that way I can actually pinpoint exactly where she wants it. And being able to like highlight whole sections.
One of the things I'm wondering, because I have occasionally harebrained ideas that are just, they seem ridiculous. I know everybody's just like super surprised to hear that. But I'm wondering, as a developer, did the community ever bring you something for Notetracks that you said, this is the dumbest thing, or like, I don't think this will ever work, and you tried it and it was like, oh, this is the best idea ever? Like, did anybody ever bring something to you like that? Or am I going to be the first?
Yeah, no, do you have one?
Actually, I was thinking about this today because I love that Notetracks is really pushing on some of the integrations, right? And I see a potential where if there was a two-way integration where I could push a file to Notetracks to send to a client, and assuming that they approved it, they could then push it directly to their media host, either by FTP or by API or something like that. That would significantly decrease the probability of an error, right? Because I send them a file, that doesn't mean that's the file they upload, right? Something else could happen. And maybe you've already built that, right? That'd be even better, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, and you're talking from the editor, or you're talking from the client, or both?
Both.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Either. So I've got a couple clients where I upload for them. Most of my clients, I send them the file and then they do everything else after that.
Yeah.
But we don't do a ton of different versions, but every once in a while, there's one that you have a different version. And there's always the possibility that you might upload the wrong one. But if you've got it sitting right there and you just push the button so that it's human proof, like, because I need something that's human proof for me. I'll throw that out there. You can take it or ignore it. I don't care.
Yeah, Brian, I got to say, that's the craziest idea I've heard so far. I feel that we're absolutely not going to entertain that. No, I'm kidding. You're the perfect person to suggest that idea, because to conclude on that, I mean, the best case scenario would be from your any of your DAWs as editors to be able to push directly to Notetracks. I mean, you have to export that MP3, you export that waveform, you have to save it, you have to render it, you have to save it, and then you have to, drag it into your Dropbox or even drag it into Notetracks. It's an extra step. And it would be great through a DAW to be able to export, that. The problem is that we can't connect to all the DAWs that are out there. And a lot of them are kind of, close structures, don't have too many integrations, except certain cooler ones, like Hindenburg.
Yeah, one that starts with an H. Yeah,
starts with an H. Reaper might have some. So I think I got the two best case DAWs to be able to discuss that. I know that Ableton does do some pushes maybe to SoundCloud, and that's about it. I think they stop there, but they don't do. But Hindenburg seems to. I know the folks at Headliner, and they have an integration. So I'm actually on a call with the Hindenburg folks in the next couple of weeks. So looking forward to discussing that. And Daniel, if you could help me, find some folks at Reaper that could allow. I mean, it's a simple connection. It's basically again grabbing the audio from there and pushing to our server. It's just really for them to make that integration, and then for the users to ask that. It shouldn't only be for us. It should be for, connect to a Zapier, connect to something that allows, users to be able to decide wherever they need to push it. If you need to push to Slack, push to Slack. You need to push to Dropbox. There's got to be a more open structure for these DAWs to be able to push out content. But I think if we start with the more cooler ones, you're definitely going to see others doing that themselves.
I think I've been meaning to reach out to because what's great about Reaper is, it's going to be a side tangent, is it's really open. So there are people that use Reaper can code and add scripts and a whole bunch of stuff to Reaper without needing to the actual developers to do it, which is really cool. But I don't know that there's any way for Reaper to export to a third party, the way Hindenburg does. Because you can upload Libsyn, I'm assuming Blueberry, a bunch of other podcast hosts. It'd be really cool for Reaper to implement that, as well as being able to render directly to Notetracks. So I would say a huge step on our end.
That's great. I mean, happy to explore it. Again, if they've got if it could be to export to other services, but if they definitely have that publishing option where it's going to again a Libsyn, it's the same process to upload it to Notetracks. So that's what kind of made me interested in looking at it with Hindenburg, because they do have those options, whether it be Headliner, whether they be any of the podcasting platforms. But we definitely should look into it for Reaper.
We also have a question from the chat. Do you have a second for that, Daniel?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Patrick wants to know, if you've seen any use for Notetracks in education, these middle school music production students.
100%. I mean, one of our first customers, shout out to Aragorn Eisler in Austin, Texas. One of our first customers was a middle school music production teacher that used it with the 75 kids in his classroom. Since the platform was designed for analysis of music, we really wanted it to be used in schools. The issue with marketing there is that it's just a hard discovery process. There's a lot of tape around getting software into classrooms, so it's not our focus anymore. We tend to go to where it's the most well received. But absolutely, we do have classrooms using it. We don't heavily advertise it. I mean, I think on our website, use cases is there is an education use case still there. So definitely, we understand that the schools have budgets, so always open to adhere to what they could what they could afford. Obviously, love to have students on board. That's where the idea came out of. So please reach out.
So we've been talking about integrations like from the DAW to Notetracks, but what other kind of integrations do you have besides that?
I mean, right now we focus on what we call micro integration. So, anything that allows us to get comments into the DAWs. So the two main ones that we have at this point are, our download marker / comments into two main editors, Adobe Audition and Audacity.
I just got excited. So the markers you're talking about, that's the markers you put in Notetracks with the comments. Do the comments come in too, or just markers?
Yeah, everything.
Into Audition?
Into Adobe Audition. I'm going to pull out the URL, but I think if you go to notetracks.com/audition, you could actually see how it would turn up into your Audition file. I'll post that into the chat. But once you click on that, you could actually see what Adobe Audition's got their marker panel and their text list. And what we do is we take all our comments, we populate it there with the timestamp. So if your clients are adding all the comments and Notetracks, giving all the feedback as an editor, you could just download that little Audition file, import it into Audition, and then you see everything there where you could make the changes. Same thing for Audacity. Why did we start with those? Because they both started with A's and we went in alphabetical order.
Oh, no.
I could suggest one with an H and probably one with an R as well.
Coming up.
Yeah.
It's coming up.
So Reaper's going to be way down the list.
So full disclosure, I've never used Notetracks and Daniel has showed it to us previously when we've met privately. But I do work on podcast teams, so narrative teams for a larger company, and one of the tools they use is Frame.io, which I hate. Sorry, it's I guess it's meant for video,
definitely,
and so those comments are hard to keep track of. They're in a little a little chat sidebar, which is weird. So seeing that and the idea of being able to bring markers in just makes me excited. So, all right, I'll see you guys later. I've got stuff now.
That's scary for the night.
This is all being recorded, right? We got this.
Oh yeah. So to kind of get into the weeds a little bit, I'm assuming when you bring that in, it attaches the comments to the timeline. So I could import it back into an existing session with the raw audio without having to start with the edited version.
Exactly.
Perfect. There's one with an H that somebody wants to.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd have to know this. I'd have to know if Hindi is that the term?
That's what I call it. Yeah.
Hindi. I'd have to know if Hindi allows for the import of markers. That's all you'd have to tell me. If it allows for the import of a marker file to populate into the editor, then we're okay. Then we've got a way to get the markers and the comments in. We just need to know the format, and it's easy for us to adapt it to that format.
I mean, I can help with the format because I get into the XML file, but as far as the import, I know it'll grab markers that are attached to the audio file and it'll bring them in as what they call cue points. So it's attached to the audio, not the timeline. But I know what the XML looks like. What I don't know is how to import them other than just copying and pasting into a session file, which is a little dangerous. You can screw some stuff up.
And when you say if the cue points are in the audio file, you mean the waveform? So they're embedded.
Yeah. So if I had exported an MP3 with markers on it, when I bring that MP3 back in, if I just drag it into a new session, it will import those markers as a separate type of marker that's attached to the audio rather than to the timeline.
Where are you putting markers in MP3 and exporting them from?
Oh, I use markers all the time to mark where I am. And so when I bring it back, right, because I'm editing, it's time to take a break. I'm like, where was I? Oh, yeah, right here. Or
but where? You're speaking in Hindenburg at the same time?
In Hindenburg, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're making them in Hindenburg, and then you could be re-importing them, and it will keep it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking for like an extra. Like if you were to tell me it was an isotope, I think isotopes it got some marker capabilities as well too. So if you were telling me you're importing, then I would say that okay, there is some structure that they have. Maybe they're putting them in the waveform or the MP3 in metadata somehow, some way we could analyze that. Okay, but anyways, we could look at that further. I'd be happy to delve deeper into that one. And to finish Carrie's point on the Frame.io stuff, I mean, Frame.io is super cool. Shout out to Frame.io. They were we've always aspired to be like a Frame.io for audio. So they came about with collaboration on video. Great company, great team. They got bought by Adobe recently. They've always paved the way for us when we pitched to investors, to funding, to be able to be like them, but just designed for audio. And that's all we want to be. I mean, they are designed specifically for video. Sure enough, folks are using it for audio, but like you say, I mean, it might work. Work for audio, but it might not work as best as it could be. And, they're tailoring for features with regards to video. And we also, side note, offer video. So we can be used for video collaboration as well. Not a lot of people know this, but you can, create video projects in Notetracks and use it as a Frame.io. Instead of having, that side panel, you actually have the notes on the waveform and you have the video on top. And, it's just a better or a different, I would say a different look and feel. But yeah,
we can say better.
Yeah, I think having it kind of laid out the way you do makes a lot more sense.
We offer two choices though, because a lot of folks kind of are used to this whole comment side panel type of thing. We call it the journal view, so it's kind of like the vertical view where it's vertical. But again, it's not my preference. I really like for some reason, I like things moving left and right, and I like to see stuff underneath. And even if the development team will tell me, hey Cam, we should just stick to one view, and I'm like, no, we got to have this. We'll add the other view for folks. Kind of like if anybody's used any of these DAWs for music production, like Ableton Live, they've got two views. They've got a vertical view and a parallel view, and they develop for both of them. You could make the same music in both those views, and you have best of both worlds. So that's basically what we do. But again, the clear choice to have the notes underneath the waveform is an audio choice.
That's how we look at audio.
Yeah, definitely. It helps. It helps to see things visually. We're very visual people.
Do you want to bring up an example and show
those joining us later, not on the live stream? You need to go check out the video to see the insanity or the beautifulness of what we're doing.
So this is an episode that I worked on. So what he's talking about, so here is the vertical view or the horizontal. So you can see the comments as you scroll left to right. And then you can zoom in more and more. And then on the right, you can bring this out if you just want the vertical view, and it's going to see a list of everything. So for me, I prefer this. When I come into Notetracks, this is what I go to, and I use this list. But if you're listening as you go, then this makes total sense, and you can leave your comments for whatever you want in the exact timestamp. Now that I've done that, I'll be getting an email here in a few minutes with this comment.
Oh, it sends you an email?
Mm-hmm. So I have, 3 collaborators. There's me. So this is my account. This is what I own. And I've added my assistant editor and my virtual assistant. So they have all access to the different projects. And so they can come in here and see everything. And then whenever they make something or make an edit or make a comment, I get kind of an email saying what the comment was.
I feel like Frame.io didn't do that.
Yeah.
That's why Notetracks is better.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a really tough time using Frame.io. I was working on a narrative podcast, and it was just me and the sound designer just wanted to jump off a bridge because of the way Frame.io functioned. And then sometimes the notes didn't save, and sometimes they did save. I don't know what was going. I mean, they were just obviously having maybe they had COVID. I don't know. But it did not work out. So I am still salty about Frame.io.
Another different thing that we do is again in the focus of audio is that we allow multiple tracks in. Like we kind of designed it as if it was a DAW, like an editor, without the editing functionality. So it looks like a DAW. It's you have got playback controls like a DAW. Your rewind, your fast forward, your slowdowns, etc. But instead of having the editing, you have got the commenting and documentation features.
So you can put in your stems.
You can put in your stems. Exactly. You kind of read my mind. You knew where I was going. I didn't even say it. I was like, did I say that? I didn't say it. You can put in your stems. So again, we kind of recommend don't try to put 5 1-hour episodes in, because that's like gigs of loading. And if you're don't blame the platform for it, you're sitting there loading gigs of, depending on your internet connection, might be faster. But what we see a lot of folks do is A/B. So have a reference, it's got to sound like this, and then have the reference and underneath, or they do the main version, the first V1 and then the V2, just the previous version, alternate between the previous version, just so you could kind of hear the changes. Multiple tracks is definitely something that's different on this platform.
Do you have any plans to add editing to it? Because I can imagine a cloud-based editor.
Yeah, I mean the amount of advertising that we tried, and the amount of folks that subscribe to our service thinking that's an editor. it's like we're doing a real good job getting editors on board to subscribe to our service. But the problem is that when they're looking for the editing tools, they don't seem to find them. So there are some familiar audio editors, podcast, collaborative, web-based, desktop-based editors. Our job is not to get into the editing of sorts. I really want to keep the ethos around the documentation collaboration. So we call editing micro edits. So it's kind of like if you really need to, if you need to draft something up, you need to trim, you need to split, you need to, move some stuff around lightly. Like let's not get into, processing. Let's not get into, some significant splicing. It's really just some light stuff, that you could just get the job done. And I think it's also an entry point for early stage folks that are creating, whether it be on the music side, podcasting side, that just need to record something and just need to trim it. I think we get a lot of folks doing compilations for dance recordings that just want to just take some different musical pieces and split them up and just put them together, on their own. But some light based stuff. Again, not to. I think once you start putting, there's only so much you could do in software, and once you start, doing a lot, it gets bloated. I think things will start slowing down if we have some heavy your elements. All of a sudden you'll have to download, a native version of Notetracks, and it works with it. We don't want to get there. We just want to make it a simple performing, documentation tool designed for audio. In reviewing some of those files, sometimes you need to make some micro edits and changes. Say, I needed to cut right here and try that type of thing.
I like that.
So what I'm thinking is I have a client who, rather than, because she'll go through record the episode and then go back and ooh, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that. So rather than sending me 20 timestamps, I upload it to Descript. She goes in and deletes what she wants, but then I have to go back in and fix it because it's Descript. But I could see that kind of thing. I went to this section, I want to delete this section, I want to delete this section.
100%. That was another concern that we had, and I think customers also voiced it too. So some are like, do not get into editing. We don't want you. And I think that's a valid concern. The valid concern is you could share if you're sharing the file for reviewing, and the client has the capacity to start exploring editing, and does have the permission to do so. They could delete things, which again you don't want them to do. So. This micro editing will be very carefully added with a permission that, that states, be careful who you give this permission to.
That's very valid.
I would say it's kind of like another smaller feature, on the multiple features that we have on the list, but it's not, we've got a lot more to do with regards to optimization of commenting, collaboration. Daniel, you mentioned that we will be talking about some interesting features. I think the other thing besides editing we're asked for is transcription. So transcription is a heavy feature, not for the sake of having the transcription file to but just to be able to search for stuff. Folks want to be able to search for stuff through they want to be able to to go into, the search. Right now you could search for project with titles, but you can't go into the actual audio thing. So like, let's say, where's that podcast I was working on automotive, type in automotive and then it pops up type of thing. So that would be powered by transcription, where we would transcribe the podcast, keep the information there, and allow it to be searchable. So that's something, we are looking into. The other thing that so here's another thing. We actually revamped our entire UI. So we've got, a new, slightly, same type of features, slightly newer look and feel to it that I'll be giving folks such as yourself access to be able to beta test in the coming weeks. But one thing we added to this one that's not in the current version is just a notepad. So like, folks have asked for a place of like putting overall notes, and some folks like will add a marker and just say overall notes, like at the end of the file or at the beginning of the file, to put a marker and they just write a big paragraph of all the overall notes. Like this is the big summary, which they've asked to populate in just a notepad. So we've got this little notepad that, functions like a little Google Docs, on the right side, that opens up where you could just, copy and paste the scripts, put your, your transcribe files if you have them, write your general notes, do whatever you like.
I like that. I like the searchable feature too, because that's what I use the most, I think, in Descript is, besides like backspace, it's like the ability to search for things.
What does backspace do?
Oh, it just deletes stuff. Like I highlight something and delete it, or copy and paste, because I'll copy and paste the stuff from the transcript into composition.
It's probably worth mentioning a lot of, I think what you're doing with that is really more of the scripted podcast editing.
I don't know how many times like I've uploaded an episode, like not, storytelling or anything, just normal episode, uploaded to Descript because I remember hearing a part, but I cannot find it in the audio because it's, 45, 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I uploaded to Descript just so I can control F, figure out where that was so I can go back into Reaper to actually do what I need to do.
There you go.
Having a transcript is always nice.
That's it. But I mean, that's powered by a transcript. They're transcribing the file and then that's it. They've got the text that's there and then it's easy to so same type of thing we got to get into. So Carrie, are you a Descript editor? Are you were editing with Descript or?
So I use Descript for dialogue editing, basically. So I'm just working with the dialogue, whether it's voiceover, interviews, whatever. And I'm either combining it to make all the, like pulling all the selects for a narrative or audio drama, right? And then I bring those in to my DAW and then I, refine, because it's the script. You have to refine everything and like paste everything. Yeah, I de-descript it. And, it saves a lot of time because then I don't have to like if an actor does something in 20 takes, I can, very quickly scan and, choose my select instead of like having to parse out like 20 takes and figure out which ones are the best ones. And, it just speeds things up.
What are you using as your editor? What's the main one?
Audition, which is why I got excited about the markers because, at the end of my process, I have to send it off for like my file off for review.
Yeah.
Right. And the notes come back in an email or notated on the script or
you gotta get them on Notetracks. I mean, when I would say in the podcasting industry, I would say we've got it's neat to see the narrative, because these folks get deep in the comments. Like Daniel, I saw yours were like little paragraphs, but I've seen like
right.
I have that.
It's cool because it's multiple actors. Like, I mean, the majority of podcasts could be like interviews, two people, editing stuff. And then there's not much back and forth. There's not much feedback. There's not much, once the editor knows what they're doing with regards to editing, there's not much feedback back and forth. But these narrative podcasts, like it's treated like it's like a movie, basically. It's multiple characters, the producer, the writer, the studio. And it's like, it's everybody like on the same session. When we get one of these podcasts, it's like a dozen people all together, different folks, and then the comments are heavy. I think we came to a bug where it was like, we've exceeded the amount of characters we could put into this comment. It's like, how much are you writing? It's like, we have to expand on that. But Carrie, love to connect and see if we could help.
Yeah, I'd love to be helped.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So one of the things I'm wondering is I love the idea of saving time, but I'm wondering, have you ever been able to work with any of the people that use Notetracks to quantify what that time savings is worth to them.
Oh, it's perfect, man. Leeway into Daniel. Daniel would love to ask the question to you. What is this? What does Notetracks do for you?
It saves a lot of headaches. So it's easier to parse. So, okay, so for my team, I no longer have to pay. They can like review it a lot quicker. It's like I'm saving money there because I don't have to pay them to do, take as much time to do it. Easier on them so they can focus on other things. But also the accuracy. So like I was saying earlier, a lot of times, so they might they're listening, they might listen in Dropbox or something. They hear the issue, they look over and it's already, 2 or 3 seconds have passed. And then they make their note. So now I have to figure out exactly what they're talking about. Or it just might be like at 1444, there's an issue there. So I go to 1444, but the issue is actually like 1440. And so now I'm trying to figure out what in the world they were talking about. So now I got to go back to them being like, for more clarification about what it is. Or if they just like miswrite, mix up a number, it's 1344, not 1444. Well, now I'm looking all over trying to figure out which point it is. So now I'm going like 2444, okay, 23. And now I'm going like each section trying to figure out what it is. Or then going back to the client. So the amount of time and headaches from the inaccuracy of other means, I think is huge. And it's not an expensive thing. Like the highest tier you have is $29 a month, which is pretty affordable, especially if you're doing this professionally. So that's what it is for me. So the time saved, but more importantly, the headaches that it prevents.
I'm just going to add that like those, as editors, we know those seconds add up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pun intended or pun not intended? The seconds add up. I love it. The seconds add up. A good slogan.
Yeah. And then, well, you're welcome to have it.
Yeah.
I won't charge you.
Looking forward to it.
And it's just, it can become very easily dealing with people like just handwriting timestamps. It can become very overwhelming very fast. I mean, I kind of dread anytime anybody gives me a timestamp, and I always go like 5 seconds before and I listen 5 seconds after, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so much easier to just assume they got it wrong.
Yeah. So to answer your question, Brian, it's hard to, every time I ask the question, I think there's 2 points that come about. It's the ease. So it's the, alleviation of the frustration in terms of the clarity, organization, et cetera. And then we do get it speeds up the production time. By how much? I don't know. I mean, Daniel, unless you've got an answer for it.
Well, and that's a fair point. That's part of why I asked the question, right? Because I have some of my clients are more fastidious than others. So I have one that when she sends me timestamps, I can lock and load. Like she might be a half a second off, but that's it. I've got another one where it really doesn't matter that there are timestamps. At least it doesn't matter that much. And when she includes the before and after statement, so I can kind of find it, I'm sometimes amazed at how close-ish she was. And when she doesn't, it's just a crapshoot. Like you just got to figure out what's going on, or you have to go back and wait for her to respond. And I don't want to affect her production timeline, but that does back up work when that happens.
Yeah, when you have to wait on that email.
Yeah.
For I don't know how many times I got. So the issue is at minute 22-ish. Okay, well now I got a 30 to 40 second window. I need to find what they're talking about.
I got to use that one too.
Yeah. Well, I'm an ish person when I do give timestamps to people too. So I'm also an offender as well as a fixer. I think though, something like this, or at least having some sort of collaboration tool in place, even if it's not Notetracks, for your clients is really super helpful because it's saving us time and ending our own frustration. And we do this for a living. So for the client, it has got to relieve a lot of stress, I would imagine, to have that, as long as it works, right? As long as it works for them, it's got to do the same thing, saving time and extra frustration. Because I'm sure, Brian, your client is not enjoying the time of recording, like not enjoying recording timestamps.
No, yeah. I'm certain that she's not. And these are, believe it or not, these are actually pre-edit timestamps based on the raw recording. Unless I screw something up, I never get feedback back. I doubt that she even listens to them once I'm done. Because one of the things I say is, if you've got something you want to make sure does not make it in the episode, I need to know what to cut. And you need to give me timestamps. And I guess technically I get them.
Ish.
And another point I do want to highlight about Notetracks is unlimited collaborators on all their plans.
Oh,
so the
sweet.
project manager, I use Airtable for my organization. It's $20 per month per person. So I stick to the free plan because I don't want to pay for, the 4 or 5 people on my team, plus, 10 to 15 clients that I have. That adds up quick. So the fact that you don't have to worry about paying extra because you want to bring a client on or whatever, because the tiers go up based on the number of projects and then the storage amounts. So I love that it's unlimited collaborators. I wish more SaaS products did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
There was a point where we're thinking about, folks are telling us to perhaps use a little bit of collaborators. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about collaboration. So we don't want to limit access to, you will have that. If you have a file that you want to review with one person or with 10, 12, 30, the more the merrier. So it's better visibility for us at the end of the day. So.
And I would imagine the expensive part is probably not administrating the users. It's probably file storage and transfer that drive the cost, right?
Definitely. I mean, in terms of the tiers, yes. I mean, in terms of the software, it's more of the development. And
gotcha.
The brain power and time.
But it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting. I keep saying that as long as I can have a day job where I could, interact with folks such as yourself and do this, that's the name of the game for me. So happy to be in these spaces to meet y'all. We were introduced to Steve's group, did a webinar there. Found Daniel as a customer, I think, through that webinar. Met with y'all at Podfest, so. And I'm here. So it's been a cool chain of events.
Well, before we go, are there any other features or anything that you want to touch on that we haven't mentioned that you think that podcast editors would get a use out of?
Yeah, I think the major thing is integration. So whether they be the micro integrations with the rest of the DAWs, if I didn't mention them, whether it be the Pro Tools, that's also folks use Pro Tools, so an import export of markers to that. I think the next thing in integrations is basically allowing the export of our audio, like publishing, basically. So the same way, we were talking about how Headliner could publish to different other platforms, we'd like to also allow users to have the ability to publish to other services, whether they be Slack. You might be using Slack in your team. You might have a need to put it back to Dropbox. So it could be a Zapier connection, or it could be specific connections that users find useful to be able to export. Off the top of my head, there was also, with regards to the DAW, we did start the development of a VST, so a plugin where you could actually, load up into any of your DAWs and then be able to view Notetrack sessions files. So that's something that's also in the works. I mean, if you don't want to open up a browser and you want to stay in your DAW completely, we do have a plugin that's not in beta yet. It's in development. It works. We haven't put it to beta or given it to any of our users yet. We're trying to figure out how to get the audio, because the next step is basically trying to see if we could, from that plugin, get the audio from the DAW to the platform, kind of like what Brian was mentioning, but through the VST instead of the actual DAW itself. Somebody got some ending time music going on?
The candle in the back of the room.
Not me yet.
No.
Now my
I don't think it was me.
Thank you speech.
You were that good, Beth. The music just appeared. No, it has been really good. This is cool. I'm going to have to sign up. So if somebody wanted to sign up for Notetracks,
easy to do so. So www.notetracks.com. If you're looking towards the Audition or Audacity integration /Audition/Audacity, we've got a discount code for any of the podcast editor mastermind folks, EM25. So you could subscribe to try out the platform. It's free for 7 days. If at any point you want to subscribe and try one of our monthly tiers, which ranges from $9 to $29, you could use this 25% off code. That'll make it much lesser than $9 a month. And at the same time, that code works for annual plans. So if you like what you're doing and you want to bank in for a year, You could choose our yearly discounted prices are probably already 15 to 20% off of the monthly. And then if you add this code, a hack is to add this code on top of the annual, and you're getting like 40 something.
Wow.
1,000,000% off, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good deal.
It is a great
We just
deal.
want to have more folks like Daniel on board and have conversations like this, because that's where the value is really at. And then meet folks that just carry, and Brian who just add to the platform. So this is where the value is at.
All right. Well, do we have a Poddex question for this evening?
We do have a pod deck, so I need you to choose a number between 1 and 5, Cam.
All right, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right.
What is is it a question?
This is a
Yes.
random question of the day that now you get to get at the same time we did. If you had to delete all but 3 apps on your phone, which ones would you keep?
Oh, wow.
TikTok?
You'd keep TikTok?
I would keep TikTok.
I keep TikTok.
I don't even have TikTok. Wow.
Yeah, I'd keep TikTok. Now, like the phone text apps, is that already?
I mean, I don't know. They're technically apps, so.
Yeah, so I was going to say phone, text, and mail. That's about it. Those are the 3 that if I could only keep them. If those are like that's basically like the phone, the text, and the mails.
Honestly, I'd probably get rid of my phone.
I get rid of my phone too.
I don't need people calling me.
Let's go level up. After that, let's talk about the non-essentials.
So I'd probably keep web browser, email, and then text was my other one. Like I have no use for the actual calling part of the phone because then I have to talk.
Text I could probably get rid of too.
I mean, sadly, I'd probably keep Facebook, which,
I might keep Facebook Messenger because that's like where a lot of my conversations are. TikTok for my entertainment.
And then email, I would keep email.
I don't know.
Camera, you can't lose the camera.
I could lose the camera.
No, that's not an app. That's just part of the phone because no other app has its own little like thing. So I'm going to say it.
There you go.
Notes. What about notes? I got to keep notes.
Oh,
right?
Google Keep is awesome. So
now I got to keep the whole phone.
Dang it.
That question's too hard.
For those joining us live, you're certainly welcome to drop your answers in the chat as well if you stuck with us this long. If you're catching the podcast, we're going to have a link in there for you to leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. What 3 apps would you keep on your phone? It's not going to be available for the live stream. It's only for our podcast listeners, but we'll make sure that that's there so that you can answer that question. What are the 3 apps you'd keep on your phone?
Spotify. Can't lose Spotify. I mean, listen to it.
Cam's up to like 24 now.
Yeah, we're giving Cam an existential crisis right now.
He's going to be thinking about this for the next week.
I'm the person that's got like the swipe. Like you could just keep swiping. Like I got like 10 pages of swipe apps. Like I'm an app hoarder. I think so. I think for me, it's to delete all the apps that I wouldn't, that I could survive without. That's a great question.
So, Carrie, if somebody wants to be a guest on the show, what do they need to do?
They need to go to Podcast Editors Mastermind /be a guest and fill out the form, and we will contact you about being a guest.
And they will. That's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
Besides knowing Daniel and Brian and meeting with them and sending them some private messages, I think that was tell me that hitting that URL is what actually worked.
Yep.
Cool.
Gets us moving.
Follow the process. Trust the process.
Exactly. Eventually.
If anybody would like to connect with me, I'm easy to find. The chat box in the app, connects directly to the team and myself. And I'm Kam at Notetracks.com. So if anybody wants a teacher that wanted to introduce the platform to, love to connect with you. Kam at Notetracks.com. If you're watching it now or watching it later, hit me up.
And also, if you're looking to get a discount on Notetracks, I encourage you to join the Podcast Editor Academy. And you get a steep discount there, as well as a ton of other things. And plus, support those that support the show, because we're truly grateful for them for supporting us and what we do here.
And use the code YETIS to get your 31 days free while that code is still active, because time is running out.
Oh yeah, almost done with that code.
Yeah.
Check out the conference if you're going to be in Dallas. It's Dallas, yeah, Dallas.
Yeah. Are you going?
I'm not. I'm having maybe.
Okay.
Like, I was glad that y'all reached out to be here, because I'm like I'm getting like it's not buyer's remorse, but it's non-buyer's remorse. So it's not. It's like I'm getting that, whatever that term is. Somebody find it for me.
FOMO.
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 It's FOMO,
fear of missing out.
But it's not the fear.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like I'm sad of missing out.
Of missing out.
It's COMO.
Disappointment.
No of missing out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we missed the boat on being a sponsor, and you could tell Steve this. And I'm sure he's probably watching or going to be watching. But yeah, would have wanted to be a sponsor there and would have wanted to be there. But there's so much to catch up to and do. So gotta choose which events we could be at. But yeah, this was the closest best thing to being around you guys again. So happy to.
Well, awesome. I'm glad we could provide.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching. And if you're catching the replay, appreciate that. Or if you're listening, thanks so much for listening. I'm Daniel Abendroth. You can find me at rothmedia.audio.
I'm Brian Ensminger. You can find me at toptieraudio.com.
I'm Carrie Caulfield Eric. You can find me at yayapodcasting.com or at Carrie Eric on Instagram.
Thank you so much. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Bye, y'all.
So how much is that?